We're down to 7 games in the regular season, and it's hard to believe. But with 4 home games, we've got to take advantage of something. And I think you look at a couple different things that we've done lately. From probably before the Michigan game on, for the most part, we've played, I think, harder. I think we played with more energy. Not always better, and a little bit more. We haven't turned the ball over a lot. Considering the lineups we've had in there, that's in the different playing groups we've had. I think that's a plus. But I thought our shot selection in a couple games hasn't been as good. I think we got used to not getting the ball inside because Adrian was gone, and now we're trying to learn to play back with him. As far as he goes, I think he's done an incredible job. He's averaging 18 points, but you can tell his conditioning is nowhere near what it is. His defense, second half of the game was better, but he's got a long ways to go there to catch back up to how we're guarding now. And maybe the biggest thing is just getting his conditioning back, because he is a very good rebounder, and he's not rebounding like he was early just because I don't think he can go. I didn't ever expected to play him 32 minutes in the last game, but we've had a couple of guys, Kaminsky has gotten more minutes, and that's probably going to help him sometime. But I think the 2 or 3 guys that have taken advantage of more time, Denzel is probably number one on the list by far. If you look at, Matt's stats, he's a top 10 guy in rebounding and assists. He's averaging like 9 points and 7 rebounds in the last, 8 rebounds in the last 7 games. I mean, for a guard, that's incredible. And I think Costello has started to build up. We can keep him out of foul trouble. The second foul he got was just, I can't believe they called it, to be honest with you. But it's not like he's a hatchet man out there. He's just getting in positions that he maybe doesn't need to be in. But he, too, is averaging 7 points, 5 rebounds, and starting to make a difference, definitely defensively. And Trice, has done a pretty good job. I was amazed that he defended as well the way they were going to post us up. I thought he has played kind of turnover-free basketball. I think there's some things we got to improve on our break. And that's why in a little meeting yesterday that we had academically and everything, and then I took some guys and talked to them about how important practice is going to be this week. We've had good practices the last 2, but we've not had great practices because I'm getting like some players, I'm coaching to make sure we don't get injured or we don't get tired or we don't. That you can't do that, and so we got to get after it this week. This is going to be a big week of practice. We got to get our break back. I think we got to try to really concentrate on our rebounding and concentrate on the chemistry of players that are going to play together. With both Costello and Adrian in there, it'll at least give us some form of semblance of what we're going to be down the stretch. And I think those 2 guys have to relearn how to work together. I think we've got to do a better job of coming up with some shots and getting that ball inside out a little bit more, which we did a poor job of in the last game. And then I think you look at Northwestern, and you have a team that a couple weeks ago or a month ago everybody thought was in shambles, and Chris has done a great job rallying them. You can tell the team's bought into his defensive philosophies. They aren't good defensively. They're very good. They've shot the ball better in the last couple of games. I think in the last 4 games they're shooting like 36-7% from 3. So they're starting to shoot the ball a little bit better. But it's the defense that has made the difference. They take pride in it. They're playing it hard, and guys are buying in. So this is a team that, they lose a heartbreaker to Nebraska, or they would have come in with a 4-game winning streak. They've won, I think, 3 out of 4. That's exciting. It's a change there as far as that goes, and because of that, I think they'll come in here. They've gone to some tough venues and won already. Going to Minnesota and Indiana. So we're going to have to play better, and we're going to have to play well, and we're going to have to start getting better at the things we need to do to to play at the end of the year. Also, questions?
You said that about practice. I was just going to ask you about, these are kind of the dog days, and Tom Anastas and Susie are talking about getting through the dog days. You kind of have to back off, but you're in a little unique situation because you haven't had your team any practice, so you have to put the pedal to the metal right now, right?
Yeah, I think that's the difference. You know, we were going through it today. We're talking about fresh legs. The only guy that doesn't have fresh legs on my team should be Denzel Valentine. You know, Trice has had time off. Costello's had time. When I say time, I'm talking, you know, a couple weeks of practice minimum to a month. So it's been Harris, Trice, um, Costello, Payne, Dawson, Kaminsky. You know, if you really look at it, who has practiced full go? It's been Valentine and maybe Elvin Ellis, but until we put Elvin Ellis on a scout team a couple weeks ago, he was getting a lot of rest every practice. So there's just nobody that, I mean, the guy that should be the deadest is the liveliest, and that's Valentine. He's brought it to practice. He's in your morning, noon, and night shooting, as well as Harris, but Valentine has gone straight through, and I see absolutely no fatigue in him at all. And so I think with my team, it's a little different than their teams. I don't see these as dog days. I see these as exciting times. We're in a hunt for a championship. We got an opportunity. We're in a hunt to get better. We know we're going to start getting healthier down the road, we hope. And I can understand why they do, and most years I would, but not this year.
Tom, you never want players out, but is it easier to put your foot to the metal or whatever with not having Keith there, not having somebody who's nursing an injury during a practice or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that, you know, you're probably right on that, because, you know, when you get a guy that's kind of hurt, you baby him a little bit. But the biggest problem right now for me is still trying to get guys to play together. Adrian goes in there, and it's great, but it creates issues for everybody else. Trice is in there, it's great, but he doesn't run things the same way, you know. And we never get to play Trav and Keith together, you know. And then I'm moving Valentine to some point. All those things are okay, but I think what's really hurt is what was one of our strengths of this team was our break, and our break is pretty designated on what we do. And boy, when Costello went out of that game the other day, we had nobody. I mean, Casper must have been running down the middle of that lane because there was nobody. You know, AP likes to trail even if he's the first, but now he doesn't have the same energy to get there. Kaminsky got to get better at it. Ghana hadn't played in a couple games, you know, and Schilling played 2 minutes and he was out of the game 1 minute with 2 fouls. So those kind of things hurt everything. As I said to you a couple weeks ago, Costello makes our break better. And, you know, now when you get other guys in there, so we got to get guys back to doing their job. And so today in practice, you know, we're going to try to practice our break, practice our rebounding, just practice a little harder and not worry about, because nobody's gotten hurt in practice. It's damn games. So we're just going to keep working at it.
How does Trice's on-court leadership compare with Applin's?
Well, I don't think either one of them are great communicators as far as talkers or rah-rah guys, but Trice is a coach's son. He understands the game. I've been very impressed by the way Travis has played in the last 2 games. His assists, his turnovers, his defense, especially against Wisconsin, which I thought was going to post him up all night. He's done a better job than that. He's probably a better pure shooter. He's just not as good at getting into the lane and making some of those decisions. But you know, something I talked to him about yesterday. I think he's got to push it harder on the break. But he too, you know, sometimes playing the point. But we started playing those two together, and then he was the 2-man. And It's just different, not as comforting, not as comfortable. And I think he'll get better this week, though. I really do. I think he's done a better job than I thought he would do. It makes me feel good for this year and next.
Tom, do you root for Northwestern as a program? I mean, they're kind of the little engine that couldn't in the Big Ten. They've never done it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to root for him this week, or this game, but I look back, and Kevin O'Neill was there, a friend of Bill Carmody was a good friend, and Chris is a guy I recruited a little bit in high school, and I have great respect for him, his dad, his family. I pull for Northwestern because I'd like to see him get in the NCAA tournament. I pull for him because I respect the university and the way they do things, their football, just everything. But I can't pull for him Thursday, but once I'm done with that game, yeah, you'd like to see somebody do something that it hasn't been done in the history of their school. I think it would be a benefit for Northwestern, of course, but I think it'd even be good for the whole Big Ten and even for the country. So I hope they do get in sometime soon.
Tom, Gary's only attempted 7 free throws in the last 3 games. With his shooting struggles, do you encourage him to try to get inside more?
Yeah.
Or is that something that's really affected by Keith not being his partner?
No, I think Gary had some chances to take it in there. I thought he did take it in there 3-4 times, and difference of opinion on whether you think he got fouled or not. But I do think he came off ball screens a little bit better in that game. But I think he early settled too much for 3. So Gary's got to be more aggressive taking it to the hole, and he's so athletic he should be able to finish in there. But when you go in there and you don't get a call, then you get skeptical too. And he's going to play better. Look, he had his worst game, I thought, on the offensive end. Not on the defensive end, but on the offensive end. And the game before that, he didn't shoot it as well either. But he's going to shoot the ball well. He's in here working on it morning, noon, and night. And as I've said a lot this week, when you take players out of the lineup and people don't get the ball in the same place or do the same things, it's a problem. When you get to the end of the year and you've got, personal goals and other goals, it gets to be a burden, a weight on your shoulder. I will, just for Joe, I will give my Twitter announcement, but if you really think about it, I don't know if it was Matt, I don't know, somebody said it and it really made a lot of sense to me. We used to be able to go to a game and have a bad game and leave the game and you never heard about it because nobody read what you guys wrote. I mean, college students don't. They don't watch the TV. They don't watch local TV. Too busy tweeting people. So they never heard about it. You go down to Ann Arbor and you get maligned, or they come up here and you get on the bus and it's over. It's never over. It's 24/7, 365 days a week. And I'm gonna tell you now, if I called any one of you what they get called 24/7, 365 days a week, you'd be fighting, you'd be upset, you'd be bummed out. The thing on ESPN, they asked me a question, I gave an honest answer, but I've been saying this for 2 years, and I think you're starting to see some of the things that are happening. You think fans are any different than they were 5 years ago? I don't. I mean, I've been called an angry midget since I went to Ann Arbor, and I'm sure they've been called stuff since they come here. I'm sure we got on the Fab Five when they were here. That hasn't changed that much. There's so much pressure on these kids, and they're hearing it just round the clock, round the clock, round the clock. And I loved when Greeny said to Golick, well, then tell him not to look at it. And you know what? That ain't going to happen. I mean, that's not going to happen. And so the consequences are we're going to have to educate better and try to do a better job. But I would just love to sit here and publicly rip you around the clock and see how you responded. And if people don't understand that, use it against me. Shame on me. But I stated it. I'm going to state it till I'm done with this. I feel bad for the players. I don't feel bad for me. I get paid money to take your stuff, their stuff, my wife's stuff, anybody else's stuff. But they don't. And it's you're seeing it, man. Like I said, I do. I spent time with Marcus Smart. I read the stuff. I don't normally go back and read it. I read the stuff when they interviewed him 2 weeks ago. He said it's all getting to him. So I'm not going to go into that drama. I'm just going to get my commercial in. But don't think it's Tom Izzo. It's about Gary Harris. It's about Marcus Smart. It's about these different guys that can never get away from it. 24/7, 365. I'm not sure I could handle that. I don't have to handle that. At least when the off season, people are going to get on D'Antonio, and then they're going to get on this person. I don't think they even have an off season, and I think it's hard. So, next question.
Well, far be it for me to venture off the topic. So, I mean, I guess kind of it's been coming for a couple of years, as you said many times. But is there a point where you guys realize maybe we don't have the best answer of how to deal with these guys? You look for other people maybe to help with handling these guys and how to adjust or how to deal with it?
You don't think we brought specialists in?
Right, well, that's yeah, I mean.
Oh my God, done that, been there. It's funny because I'll tell people the same thing. Don't let it bother you. I mean, about other things. Forget Twitter. Something else. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it bother you. You never let something bother you until it happens to you. Cancer's important to all of us. If somebody in this room lost somebody to cancer, lost somebody that was close to them, it means more to you than it does to somebody that hasn't. And that's what I tried to tell those guys yesterday. Wait till it's your kid. And I think it's given people the freedom, as I called myself un-American a couple years ago, because I don't think freedom of speech was written for the way it's now being portrayed, but that'll get me in trouble again, so I'll stay in trouble. But I'm the one guy that I think I'm trying to protect the players or the young kids. Now, it's their fault, but they read it, but we haven't educated them. As I go back to that thing that happened at Texas Tech, it's the adults that are the problem, okay, to a certain extent. And I just feel bad that a player can't have a bad game, get ripped for one day, move on to the next. That ain't happening. Not happening anymore. So, the only thing I would agree with you, Matt, is it's probably here to stay. Probably here to stay. A lot of bad things here to stay. It doesn't mean I have to sit here and agree with them or laugh when I see some of my counterparts complaining about it like I am, and then being the ones on it. I mean, that'd be like me condemning alcohol and being the town drunk at Mayberry RFD or something. I mean, just you can't do that.
Is part of you almost surprised that something like what happened with Marcus the other day hasn't happened sooner or more often, where a kid just?
No, I think it's about the right timing. It takes a couple of years. This thing it's been here a couple of years, and it's just getting worse. It's giving people the freedom behind the keyboard to say what they want. Now it's not just behind the keyboard. They go out in public because it's just such everyday stuff. It's just such normality to it. And like I said, I mean, I've already written stuff up. My parent meeting next year, I called some parents and tried to talk to them. I almost apologized to them. But if you wonder why there's these ups and downs, I got the answers. Maybe somebody else doesn't. So I think the ones that are against what I'm saying, 200% would say, well, that's stupid. Like I said, man, wait till it happens to you. Wait till it's your son. Wait till it's your daughter. It won't be as funny. And most people aren't in the position. The other reason it doesn't affect, and there's everybody, most people aren't in the position that their status is so that everybody in the community knows about it. Most of the people in the community know about all you guys. If we were saying that about you guys, Freddie, if I was picking on you morning, noon, and night, which would be easy to do, I think you'd look at it differently. And I didn't know that. That's just another good example. And I think you should be like Greeny and say, well, then then take your kids off it. Why do they read it? Hell, we made it so it's intravenous now. They can't breathe without having a damn phone. So I don't want to kill anybody. I just want them to learn.
Yeah.
Basketball question. Next
Now
question.
that you're a little fired up,
Yeah.
how's Keith doing?
You know what? At 5:30 this morning, I watched the comedy show on HBO. So is that what this is now? Is it a little comedy show? Keith, a little more movement in his wrist. I know this will sound ignorant, and it's not meant to. I got so many things to deal with. I'm letting the doctors deal with that. I talked to him yesterday. I'll talk to him every day. A little better movement. From what I know, it's worse now than it was when he was playing. Because when he quit playing, it got worse. And was that because of time and all the things? I don't know. I told you he's week to week now because I just didn't want to embarrass myself or embarrass you because I couldn't answer the questions. I guess technically he's still day to day. I mean, tomorrow he could be better because there seems to be nothing structurally wrong. But I'm not expecting him to play this week right now. I'm really not.
So,
Go ahead.
I know this, and I know you don't have the answer, but in your mind, would you like him back by Purdue next week? Is there a target in your mind, or are you just solely just going?
I was a target. 3 o'clock today is honestly my target. I mean, I agree with what everybody says, and I get colleagues all around the country. I got coaches calling me and saying, hey, you know what? You're going to be fresher for the tournament. You're going to be this. First of all, we have a Big Ten championship I'd really like to win. And we've put ourselves in a position where we have a chance to do that. Second of all, I can't believe that coaches would call me and, this is not one player. It's not one player that was out. It's been so many that, we're trying to, I asked Matt, well, give me the stats with Appling in the lineup. Then give me him with Harris in the lineup. Then give me him with Payne in the lineup. And then give me it when Appling and Payne are in together. And give me him when Harris and Dawson are in there together. And trying to figure out a pattern. It's not been a lot of fun. But it's nobody's fault. It's not like one of those. It's not like somebody's faking an injury. It's not like somebody's doesn't want to play. I mean, nobody wants to play more than Appling, to be very blunt and honest about it. But it's frustrating because when I get a Payne back and all of a sudden we can't cover things, or we got a guy doing things you're not used to. We're sitting up there today trying to say, okay, let's look at some different plays now where we can get him involved. If we got him and Kaminsky in the game at the same time, or him involved if we move Valentine to the 4. And those things are the underlying things that make it a little more difficult from our standpoint. But the bottom line is, if I get him back, in the next week or two, and we keep everybody healthy, I think this team has a chance to be damn good. I mean, really good. And yet, we'll find out.
we're pinning you down, but the reality is he could miss the rest of the regular season, right?
I doubt that. I mean, I doubt that because, again, there's nothing structurally wrong. I mean, a sprain of anything, if it's a sprained ankle, although I guess a severely sprained ankle could be a month, but I'm not seeing that, but I didn't see what happened already. So like I answered you last week about I didn't think he'd be back now, maybe for a week or so. I think if I looked at the longest of long terms, I'd be thinking a couple weeks, but I could be surprised. I've gotten a degree in medicine this year, and I really have zero interest in continuing it.
Wish you'd sat him earlier, or did he damage it by playing, or
No.
not? No?
You know, with injuries, when you x-ray people, I'm sure all of you have been through something in your life. There's medical things, but the bottom line on a lot of this stuff, if it's not shown medically, is you got to go by what the person says. And, in his case, I mean, yeah, he said it was sore, but okay, you want to sit out? No, I'm not sitting out. He told me that the day that he sat out. So I don't look at we should have done anything earlier. And plus, Keith Appling's a guy that's really come on this year. I mean, he was Player of the Year candidate. And, if it's not anything that's structurally going to hurt you for the long run or for your career, I mean, a lot of guys play through injuries.
You said he's your toughest guy. Is his own toughness a detriment to him, maybe in this case? If another guy might have spoken up a month earlier and said, this isn't right, or
I mean, there's probably only one guy that knows that, and it's a guy's higher up than the UP. So I don't know that answer to that, but I don't think so. I have respect for Keith and how he's handled it. He's played a little hurt when it got bad enough where he couldn't do the things he wanted to do, or he thought it was really affecting him. He made that known up until that. And even now, you see him on the bench, he looks dead. I mean, he's bummed out. I mean, other guys go through it. The guy, I was starting to add it up. I think he went through over 450 practices without missing a practice. So this guy never missed a game until he missed that game. This isn't your normal athlete. This is a guy and he's been hurt before, and he's just played through it, and he's played pretty well. When he hurt the wrist originally, and when he hurt the hip, he was way worse off then, and he had some big games during that part.
Tom, I agree with you that the adults are the problem when you talk about Twitter, but a couple of years ago you had a player, I won't name him to embarrass him, that you were very unhappy with, and you told us after practice, I'm tired of my bads, I'm tired of excuses, walk in and tell me how to fix the problem. So I'm going to turn the page on you and say, you've made it clear, and I agree with you that it's a problem. How do you fix it?
Well, what I've done is I've told my guys to try to do what I try to do. For the most part, I try not to listen to talk radio. I try not to read the newspapers during the year. And I don't advocate that for everybody. I'm not hurting your I still buy your paper. I just use it for something else. Yeah, I still do. But the point, like I tell my guys, is, you have to sacrifice some things. You have to give up some things that you got to do some things that would positively affect you. Maybe come in the gym more, maybe do this, maybe sleep a little more, maybe eat a little better. And then you have to do some things that would negatively affect you, If there are things that negatively affect you and you want to accomplish something big, you got to sacrifice a little bit. And that was my thing to Gary, a couple weeks ago. I just said, I told the whole team, if you can give me 2 months, give me 2 months, I said, me personally, could I demand they stay off the phones? Probably. I think a couple of programs have done it. Would I be successful? Probably not. Probably not. But you can only demand so many things too, What you got to do is educate them on why it would benefit them. And, I think guys are seeing things a little differently now. They're just, that phone has become like a drug. We should phone test. It's become a drug. I mean, it really has. And I feel bad for my own kids. But make sure you understand, this isn't me talking against that from my perspective, because I learned from Judd Heathcote the greatest lesson I've ever learned, and that's what you guys so kindly did after the game when you had to ask me a couple tough questions, and you said, it's hard to ask you these questions. at this time. And you know, I realized a long time ago, you got a job to do too. Sometimes I don't like your job, but sometimes you don't like mine. But I've always respected your job. That's why everybody has my phone number. That's why you can call me, because I do respect. You got a boss, you got a wife, you got kids, you got a job, and there are things that are hard in these jobs, but we are grown men or women. You know, this number, man, blows me away. This 18 to 21, you know, you go from a boy to a man because you have a birthday. I don't want to get into all the philosophical things, but who's kidding who? You know, I mean, I'll guarantee you, boy, I was in my late 20s before I even thought about being a man. You know, and I just feel sorry for these guys. I'm the hardest on them. I'll tell everybody in this room, I'm as hard on them as I think anybody out there. But I love those guys to death. And I mean, even players from other teams. I watched the Marcus Smart thing. I felt bad for him because I happen to know him a little bit, and I know what kind of guy he is. There's a thing these kids go through, whether it be the NBA, whether it be the recruiting process. I love Stephen A. Smith's comments on the recruiting thing. You know, almost talked about his own station. You know, making too big a deal, putting them on too. You know, it seems cool, but then you got to live with it. And I keep saying, if I told you or you or you, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, pretty soon you're going to start believing you're great. And if I tell you you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, pretty soon you're going to believe that. And I still go back to my favorite comment was the Kentucky game, you know. It's going to be 10,000 tweets if you won, 100,000 tweets if you lost. We got to figure out a week before how we're going to deal with it. And I think we're funny society. We have a way of just accepting, well, can't do nothing about it. Does that make it right? You know, and I think right now there's a lot of kids out there that are struggling because they're just getting killed. Killed on talk radio doesn't bother. There's only so many people that read it, and it comes and it goes. Killed on something that sustains itself and just day after day after day after day. Tough. So, too much talk about Twitter. Some will love it because they'll think it hurts my recruiting because this is what young kids do. I decided the other day I'm sticking up for young kids. I'm sticking up for them. Get his chisel, hammer, and a rock, and he'd go text somebody. That's what I think he'd do. I can even imagine what you brought a laugh to my podium. Just think what Judd would do. If you think I can tell you that on this podium at this time, you're crazy. I mean, yeah. Who else?
Back to a different dead horse here.
All
Injuries
right.
again. I know it's only been a few days since we asked you, but Dawson, is he still right on the same path? Are you starting to think maybe he's going to get back even a little sooner, or no? Or?
He gets the pins out of his hand. I think, what's the date today? 11th. I think around the 20th. And I think at that same time, you know, they'll be x-raying to see. I keep saying that looking at his knee, he was the fastest healer I've ever seen having an injury. Whether bones heal like ligaments, I don't know. But if I'm a betting man, I'd say he's going to get back as quick as anybody in the country. I still think there's a process to what happens. I think the good news is I've been so proud of that kid. My strength coach came up to me the other day and said, you better go down and hug Dawson. I said, why? He said he has worked his tail off on his conditioning, and he's been really good on the bench. I told you the day it happened or day after, I think this could be a turning point for Brandon Dawson. I really do. And we're going to make a negative into a positive. And so he's on track, but there'll be nothing in the next week and a half for sure.
Is he the guy you miss most? I mean, you're 2 and 3-year losses without him. That could just be circumstance more than anything. But is he the guy you miss most?
I mean, you know, it's kind of funny when you talk to our staff. You look at 9 rebounds a game or whatever, and his absence has made us change the most because we were switching four and we could do so many different things defensively. He could guard so many different people. Payne's absence probably hurt us the most for Gary and Keith because of his versatility. God, you can just flip a coin. Who hurts you the most? You know, you lose your quarterback. That should be number one on the list. But Brandon, every one of those guys hurt us in different ways. If I had to take overall who's going to affect the most people, I would say it's Payne because he can go inside, he can go outside. He can help keep guys off Harris. He can help on the pick and pops with, and he can still, when he's back 100%, which he's nowhere near, he can almost guard stretch four men, and he can guard a guard. He can move his feet well enough. So we could use him in a lot of ways defensively that we can't even think about using now. As you saw him in that game, I mean, he's bent over a lot yet, and he's worked to get his conditioning back. And I think another week, and I think it'll be pretty good. I really do.
Since you're in sort of a philosophical mood, you said fans haven't changed. I'm just curious, kind of in a vacuum, your thoughts on a middle-aged man hurling personal insults to a 19-year-old kid from 4 feet away. Just, do fans have that right? I mean, I'm just curious what you think about that.
Oh, I don't think they have that right. I just think that's gone on since, you know, we were in the Coliseum, you know. I think those same things go on at all arenas. I really do. Do they have the right to? No, they can overstep their bounds. And are they overstepping them more now? Because freedom of speech has turned into, as I said, not the way I think it was written. And each year, you know, more happens, and then when you can tweet it, you feel you can say it. You get a little more courage. And, I mean, I thought that was I wish I knew the whole thing, but I'll guarantee you this. I'll bet you last year Marcus Smart was walking away from that. It's all the pressure, some his own and some the other people. I bet he could have walked away from the same incident last year. I think it's just the pressure these kids are under, and I keep saying it. I bet you nobody in here will believe it. This is all about them. I feel sorry for them.
You reference freedom of speech, which is true, but that doesn't guarantee freedom from consequence.
Why?
No, I'm saying that there's going to be consequences if people say anything, or there can be. My question is, do universities have more of a responsibility to police the fans in their own arena?
I don't know. I mean, you say that there's consequences. There's consequences, not if you go by what freedom of speech says. Are there really consequences? I mean,
for example, you could say, or in your podium, or any of us at ours, anything we want about our wife, it doesn't guarantee that there's a freedom that she's not going to divorce you for it. I mean, there are consequences that can come from that freedom of speech. Do you think schools need to police it more? I mean, your student section can
it's
get
brutal. It can be brutal. As 98% of
right.
them.
I'm not just picking on them.
Yeah,
I mean anyone.
Yeah. You know, what you hope, what I always try to tell our student section even, you know, worry more about us than about them. And try not to get personal. You know, if you don't like Michigan or Indiana or this or that and it's generic, fine. But if you start getting personal, I think I'm not for that. But the consequences, I mean, we actually looked into, could we demand that our kids stay off? I mean, do you know legally we can't do that? I mean, the freedoms outweigh the consequences, if you ask me, this day and age.
Do you think it's more personal now?
I don't think it is. I think it's taken more that way. I think kids, I think there's just a higher frustration level because of the pressure these kids are under. That's what I think. And that's why I went on my, I guess, soapbox. I guess I'm sure around the country there'll be half the coaches laughing and half of them you know what, I really don't care anymore because I'm watching it. I've had guys in my office in tears, grown men, according to birth dates. I, you know, I'll leave a meeting with a player. You know what I go? I call my daughter. I go over to the dorm. I drive her around campus for an hour, and I tell her, listen, you know, this is what these things can happen. Stay off that thing as much as you can. Or if you're using it like most guys will tell me, well, there's educational reasons to use it, and there are. And there's informational reasons. You know, if the Tigers beat the Red Sox and I find out at 3 or 3:15, it really doesn't matter. They still beat them. You know, so this instant information doesn't always, especially when in my sick mind, I think that over half of it's false information anyway. So, hey, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I probably overdid it today, but maybe this is my way of saying somebody better start looking out for what it's doing to the kids. We get paid. You get paid to use it. I get paid. They don't get paid. Okay? And that's a whole nother story, I know. So forget the payment. They're still 18. The pros that are doing it, they're still 19, 20 years old. Unless you are a lot better men than I was, and you were a lot more mature than I was, it would affect you. And as everything else we do, we look at the good things it does for us, and we don't look at the consequences. You know, 72 guys come out early, and 30 of them make it. And we talk about the 5 that are superstars, and we forget about all the ones that went by the wayside. That's kind of what we're doing with this. And I'll text what I got to text. I'll recruit how I got to recruit. I'm not going to condone something that I'm hearing other coaches now that tweet their little tail off, complaining that people are tweeting about their own kids and putting too much pressure on them. Why, you know, then why do it? At least I'm going to sit here and say, I'm going to do what I got to do my job, but I'm going to feel for these guys and think back and say, could I have handled that? I already did it. I already know the answer. And I know most of you, don't pat yourself on the back, because most of you couldn't have handled it either. And I swear to you, I swear to God to you, that's the truth. And so, if anybody thinks it's an Izzo soapbox, it's not. It's a 14 to probably 24 or 5. Because see, I don't think you become a man when you become 18. You know. What else? Something good. This has been good. It's not been bad. Been good. Let's talk about Northwestern. Talk about something good.
Well then,
It's such a good setting. He didn't want to have a round table. We made it a round auditorium here, so that's what we're doing.
So with Payne, do you feel like you could even use him more in the half court moving forward here? Just the way he seems to be posting and driving and shooting. I mean,
Yeah.
Can he be, when you're in the half court, even be a bigger part of things here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Adrian Payne has come the farthest. He's very confident in what he's doing right now, even being injured. He learned a lot. What is hard for Adrian, as we all known him, he gets frustrated about things easily. He's reverted back a little bit on that. We've talked to him about it, but he wants to be a player. I mean, it's been fun watching him like basketball, love basketball, then fall in love with basketball. And there's no question in my mind that this kid I think he improved the other day, you know, putting it on the floor better. He can pass the ball, and it's just that he needs reps. He needs to play with guys. He needs to know when he drives here that Gary's going to be moving there, or Keith's going to be moving here. And that's the part that might not happen. But I think we can utilize him, I think, in a lot of different ways, both offensively and defensively.
Northwestern, obviously getting ready to play them. Your thoughts, how have they improved since the last time you saw them, Tom?
Shooting the ball better. I think 3 of the last 4 games they've shot in the mid to higher 30s from the 3. They were shooting 29 at one time. Defensively, I still think they're very good, maybe even improved a little bit more. They've changed their lineup. I mean, Sobolewski didn't play against us. He hasn't played much now. They're more athletic. They're bigger. Denny, no, not Crawford. The other kid that comes right off the bench, Demps has really helped them. He is an instant offense guy that's shooting it well, and they don't have great depth, but they've done a very good job of figuring out what they can and can't do, and I keep trying to improve on the can'ts, but they've really stayed steady on the cans, and the cans they defend very well, very solid, and they're improving their shooting. They're improving. They still slow the game down. It looks like they're trying to speed it up a little bit more, and it's a concern for us because, again, with Travis, some things didn't happen in the last game that could have. We got some of our bigs in foul trouble, but we didn't get our guards in foul trouble, and right now that's where we're the not the weakest, but the least in numbers. And so this week will be, 2 games that I think people think you should win at home. I'm sure Indiana thought they should win, and Minnesota thought they should win, and Iowa thought they should win some of those home games. It's just one of those years. I mean, anybody watched the Iowa State game last night? Parts of it, I saw a little bit of it. Guy goes from having 48 to having 4 or 6. It's basketball, and this is the time of year when I agree with Susie, I agree with Tom, but I don't know if it's the dog days for us, but it's the time when upsets seem to happen and things because you're not quite into March, and it's been so long, and that's what we got to try to make sure we keep telling our kids because it's the same for them.